Hey everybody, it's Mike D, and I'm reading a whale of a book about John F. Kennedy Jr. by Christopher Anderson called The Good Son. And it's a little deeper than we normally go. I'm going to try some politics of the 60s and see how it flies with you guys. During the 60s, the Kennedys were like royalty. Jackie O was a widow going into 64, and everyone was intensely interested in John F. Kennedy Jr. and Caroline and how they were being raised and what happens next to this American dynasty. So they were all over Life magazine and Time magazine, all definitely in the 60s. By the 70s and 80s, other presidents and their family, like the Carters with Amy Carter, had shared the spotlight with them, but still, big deal. So the big thing with John F. Kennedy Jr. is he had complete attention growing up, age like 3, 4, 5, elementary school. He had Secret Service following him around, usually 3 or 4 people, and it was an incredible amount of pressure, and yet he was very even-handed. He was friendly. He was kind. He was sensitive because he had the death of his father at a young age, and he always wanted to be treated regular, like no special favors. So he pretty quickly made friends with everyone around him. And yeah, there was some teasing and stuff, but he kind of, I guess, by high school had kind of won people over. That was like the good side that I learned about JFK Jr. The darker side, he had one big problem. He had attention deficit disorder. I mean, not really diagnosed, but clearly he had really problems with his attention span. They wanted to keep him back in the first grade. Like, going back a grade is a big deal. And who wants to make that call to Jackie Kennedy? And she said, no way. And she pulled him out of the school and he went to another school. So they brushed it off. And then by high school, again, they're like 11th grade. They're like, no, we want to hold him back a grade. Like, I don't know anyone in my high school who stayed back a grade, but he just had real problems concentrating in school. And maybe today he'd have more of a diagnosis or something like ADHD to find out what's going on with him. But back then, he's a hyper kid. But he loved like just going out on a sailboat or hiking in the woods, just really blowing off to the countryside. Obviously, that was the only time he kind of felt free. So he wasn't big on team sports, but he liked skiing and sailing. And he had great opportunities to go all over the world and meet celebrities. That was the plus side. There's so much to unpack. Like, now I understand a lot of the dynamics of the Kennedys. Um, After Jackie became a widow in 64, she became very close to Bobby Kennedy. They probably had an affair. Okay, that's most likely what happened. Or at the very least, were very close for a long time. He was Catholic, married with like 11 kids, and Ethel was his long-suffering wife. And apparently that side of the Kennedys was really wild, and they had rough football games where people would get bloody injuries, and they were just a tough clan of people. Obviously, they went into politics. Really tough game. So Jackie wanted to keep her kids in Manhattan and New York and away from Boston area and these 11 kids. And the real bombshell in this book is, I mean, they're doing all right. They're, Bobby's helping out with the young boy, and Uncle Teddy Kennedy's helping out raise the young child, and they're getting along. And then by 68, Jackie, I mean, it's hard for her to date. I mean, she said, like, what am I going to do? Go date the guy at the local dry cleaner? Like, it doesn't really work like that. I'm a world-class, celebrity dignitary. So it was, her dating pool was very difficult, but she ended up, this guy from Greece really went after her. He was a real charmer, and it was throwing money at her, and his name was Ari Onassis. Just a world class, multi millionaire, maybe a billionaire, and they did have a chemistry together for whatever reason they did. And by 68, I mean, the rest of the Kennedys were like, hell no, don't get anywhere near this guy. He has a sketchy background, the way he made his money. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the implication in this book. And Bobby's running for president. So you get the hell away from Onassis. It's a mismatch, and don't do it for whatever reason. And he was a playboy, and he had lots of affairs, and with Maria Callas, who was this opera singer, and all of that. So then Bobby gets no more. He passes away in an assassination in 68, and that's just the second real blow to the Kennedy family, and she flips out. She's like, oh my God, they're doing away with Kennedys. And I need a very wealthy husband to protect me. I need to get away from the US on these luxury cruise yachts and go away from the world, and I'm going to marry Onassis. He had an army of 75 people protecting him. And that's what she wanted, security and protection, and financially to go up to the next level. I mean, at that level, lifestyles are very expensive to maintain. So they married, and it was always a really awkward mix. I mean, Ari was friends with John F. Kennedy, so they would like hang out together at the beach, and Ari's this playboy billionaire, and John's like this 9-year-old kid, but they kind of became friends in this fishbowl because they were such just a rare group of people. I think it was hard for them to mingle in, and someone should make a movie about Ari and John, and they had this friendship for a couple of years, and Caroline Kennedy, but not as much. And it went all right for a couple of years. They became more of an international jet set family. And she had access to Scorpios, which is a private island. And I mean, the next big bombshell was Teddy Kennedy was the next big guy to like maybe run for president soon. But he was in this car crash, and another woman was with him. She drowned. He swam to safety. It was so murky and mysterious that it was realized he will never be president after that, but he was a senator for a long time. And so that was the next thing that hit them hard. And then I guess, they're growing up, going to school, and life continues as normal until 73. And then Onassis has a son named Alexander who's very into like kind of like helicopters and flying and being a pilot. And I don't think he was fully trained because he had this helicopter crash that he was driving, and a horrible accident, and he also passed on. So that devastated Onassis. He was never the same. He became just such an angry person. And the marriage just, I mean, they really, Jackie tried to comfort him, but he was just a lost soul at that point. And he immediately brought in Christina, the daughter, close to him. And Christina, he had to show her the business, how to run shipping tankers, oil tankers all over the world. And within a year, he had a disease, and he was on his deathbed. So he just had a year to train Christina Onassis to take over the empire. And then Jackie was divorcing him when he was, getting sick. She was done. It wasn't working. And so they were separated when he died. So that was 75, and just another bombshell. But life goes on. She really wanted them in Manhattan because It gave them stability in New York, and once again, not near the 11 kids in the Kennedy compound. Because after Bobby passed, I mean, the kids went wild. They had no father taking care of them, and they all got into drugs. And RFK was one of the 11 kids, and like drug dealing and all of that stuff. Hey, it was the late 70s. It is what it is. But apparently, they were a wild bunch, and Jackie just definitely wanted her two kids away from them. So he is kind of a thrill seeker. He likes to take risks. We're back to JFK Jr. now. And he's good in theater, and I think he really should have pursued acting. Academics was not for him. And I mean, he ended up being pushed into going to college and being a lawyer. And I mean, he never practiced law or anything. He ended up running a magazine called George. He liked journalism. That interested him. But I think he did date Daryl Hannah, the actress, for like 5 years, and it just seems like he would have been a natural model actor. He did great in the theater and really loved it, and would have been a great actor, I think. So whatever, they chose him to just stay in the academic route. I think they were really grooming him to be a politician, and it just wasn't really a fit for him. That's the big story of his life. He was born into something where his dad was a great politician and president, but he was just something different. He was a free spirit. He was a loving and kind person, but who can, that's one in a million to reach the aspirations of becoming a president. And he just didn't have what his father had. He could have gone on to be like a really good actor and maybe a congressman someday way down the line. But, that's the story of his life. And the bottom line is he did get married to Carolyn Bessette. Um, they never had kids, and he did found this magazine, George. I remember it when people really went to newsstands and read magazines a lot. It was a different time. It was the 90s, and he did a little acting. He was on Murphy Brown. He did kind of a fun little thing that I enjoyed, and he just seemed like a really natural when he was on talk shows, and he was very likable from all accounts. Everyone around him, he just won them over. You would think he'd be a spoiled brat or ask for all kinds of favors, but he didn't want that. He wanted to blend in, and same with Caroline Kennedy. So eventually he got a pilot's license. They all said, God, no, don't do it. Don't get a pilot license. They just felt he was too much of a risk taker. And it goes into real detail of that night. I mean, it was really foggy that night in that plane. A lot of people didn't cancel their flights. A lot of the small aircraft or just said, no, I'm not going. And what you want to do is stay by the shore up in Massachusetts because you can see where you are. But he chose to take a shortcut and go through the ocean, through the fog. So he had to rely completely on his instruments. And he wasn't that well trained. He'd only been a pilot like 2 years. He had bought a new plane. He didn't know it that well. He could have had an instructor with him. Didn't want that. And he could have hit autopilot. This blew my mind. If he would have hit auto, and I don't think he knew where that button was or that feature because he would have done it. And that would have taken him to his destination. But he didn't do it for whatever reason. Like I said, I don't think he knew that was there. So he's in the fog with Caroline and Caroline's sister in the back, and he had a broken leg and he was just recovering. One more reason not to fly, But all his life he was a risk taker with like bicycles and kayaking and skiing, and that was just part of his makeup. I think sooner or later the wheel stops, and that night was his turn. And the plane started spinning, and he still had a chance to write it. You have to really just look at your instruments. You have to calm down, breathe, and just do what the instruments tell you to do and not do what you think is going on. And pilots are learned to do that. Had he done that, he could have righted the plane up, but he just didn't have the experience. He should have had an instructor with him, or an experienced pilot, or not flown that night, or stayed along the coast and gone the long way. There's like 5 different things that definitely could have been done. But that was part of his makeup. The Kennedys do have a kind of a reckless streak. As it referring to the other family, that's just part of their nature. They're tough Irish people, and they want to take big chances in politics, and that's just how they are. So I'm not judging in any way. I'm just trying to give you a sense of them and how big a deal they were in the 60s and 70s. Jackie was total royalty. They followed everything she did, and she's a whole other story. But she did raise her kids really well under that kind of pressure. So that's kind of the mysteries of the Kennedys, the plane crash, the Onassis. I hope I've shed some light into this fascinating situation that I never understood. The audiobook is called The Good Son, which he was a good son, by Christopher Anderson. I'm highly enjoying it. And I'm Mike D. My YouTube channel is downpeppertreelane.com or Down Pepper Tree Lane. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.